Hello, my name is Kyle Pounds, and this video is talking about subcutaneous fatty lipoma removal because that's what I did to myself about 1 month and 4 days ago. So I'll talk about the process from the beginning to the end. Back in high school, I didn't have any lipomas. There's nothing. 10 years ago, I don't remember having anything. And then I kind of noticed a lump on my arm. And it was weird how it come, because it's like all of a sudden I noticed this big lump on my arm. So I think when it was really small, I just didn't think about it until it got really big. It took years to do, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I got this lipoma. And then it just continued to get larger and larger and larger. And then I got this one on my leg, which was even bigger. Then it was even bigger than the one on my arm. And originally my mom wanted me to get them removed, but I didn't want to because I didn't have insurance and I didn't have any money. But then my mom kept telling me she wanted me to remove them, and then I started feeling them, and then I got in my head that I had to get them removed because I was just feeling them all the time on my leg, and I could feel them even when I put my hand on the desk. I could feel the extra pressure in my arm, and I felt like it was even making my 2 fingers numb. Although that's probably not the main reason. The main reason was just if you put your elbows on the table for too long, you get the carpal tunnel. But it wasn't that. But anyways, I could feel it on me. And then people asking me what they are, and I just feel like a bum, like some deformed, subhuman type person. I wanted to get them out. And I had a lot of them too. I had this one on my leg. I had one here, and I still have them. I have one here. I've got like another half dozen or a dozen of them on my body. So basically, what is a subcutaneous fatty lipoma? Well, my mom did a search on the internet, and it says here that it affects 1 out of every 1,000 people, and mostly women get them, and it affects people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah, so that kind of makes sense. I know I'm going to continue to grow them throughout my life and have to get them out. But since I did it myself, it's not daunting, and I actually enjoy it. So the process of me doing it is I did research. My mom, really wanted to get them removed, so they... She got the number from the University of Seattle Medical Center, and I called them a few times, but they found out, or I told them that I'm not an actual official Washington citizen, so I didn't get some kind of special funding. So they ended up telling me it would cost somewhere between $400 and $600 to get them removed there, for all of them. And so at that point I was like, well, that's too much, and maybe even more than that. So I'm not going to play any of those games. And it's actually one of the things that there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to just take them out yourself. Insurance does not cover these because they're a cosmetic deformity. They're not cancerous. They're benign, so if somebody sends them to get a biopsy, it's so they can charge you another few $1,000s. I smell rats on that one. Gotta be honest. So, yeah, but basically what they are, they're fat cells that just keep reproducing, but they're not malignant. They're not going to turn all the other cells into cancer. So that's why I wanted to get them out. I just had to get them out, and I didn't want to pay for it. And luckily for me, I was at my friend's house, and I mentioned them, and my friend was okay with cutting them out, as long as get her sauced up a little bit and not freaked out about it. Now, what did I do? How did we do it? Okay, we did it because we did it by putting 6 hot dogs with pressure on the site for 1/2 hour. Frozen hot dogs, not warm cooked hot dogs. Frozen hot dogs. Because what you want to do is put them hard on it to numb the skin. And when I was having it on this for a ½ hour, when I took it off, I could see the fat around it was white. My skin was white, 100% white. It had frozen the fat in there and made the fat freezing cold. And so then we cut it and sliced it, and it just squeezed right out, and it didn't bleed because it was frozen. And it didn't hurt because it was frozen. It did not hurt at all. I felt no pain. My arm here, I felt some pain, but I think that was because I just didn't freeze all of it. I used the same 6 hot dogs to do all of them, so that by the time I got to the last one, they weren't really that cold anymore. So what I do differently is next time I would use different 6 set of hot dogs. The colder your hot dogs are, the colder you're going to be. So And I took like 8 pain relievers and drank like 5 beers and a glass of wine. By the end of it, at the night when I went to sleep, I felt really bad. Like I was this close to puking. So if I were to do it again, I would drink alcohol or I'd take the pain relievers, but I wouldn't take pain relievers and drink the alcohol because that's just toxic. But I think the main thing about the pain is just the frozen hot dogs on there. We also put a topical anesthetic, and we also, for the pain, yeah, that was about it. And you just slice, cut across, squeeze, comes out. Now, one thing that I was surprised after watching YouTube videos of people doing it is in the YouTube videos, what I recall is that they took them out and they were just connected by like a little sliver of like veins or something. But in my experiences, when I took them out, they were connected by a lot. They were connected by just flesh that was just as big around as the actual hole itself. So if you were to like squeeze a lipoma out and then just yank it out, that hurt. You take a lot of guts with you. It'd be bleedy. It's not a pretty sight. You have to cut them out with this. This is what I use. I use an X-Acto knife that I got for $18 at a fabric store. Just poked it in, slice across like a saw, and then squeeze. And it was a really good procedure. I mean, I could have even done it myself, but it would be queasy to slice yourself. But so let's see. My mom made up some frequently asked questions. Would you describe it? Okay. How did I learn what they were? Well, I have family members who have them, and I heard they had to take them out. I have a cousin who had, I think, like 50 of them taken out, and he had them taken out with liposuction. And I think sometimes they take them out with liposuction because you have lots of little ones that are next to each other. And if you cut a hole and squeeze it out, you're not going to get the one next to it unless you go in the same hole that you cut and liposuction it out. And that's probably what they did with my cousin. But that's incredibly painful, and I can imagine how it's painful. The way I would do it, if you're doing home procedure, is just, if you have a bunch of them next to each other, you just make a separate hole for each one. Because I had a small one here and I squeezed it out, and within like a day or two it was completely fused. It fused right together. You can barely even see there was a scar there. So the idea, I would elect to make lots of little holes to squeeze lots of little ones out rather than make one hole and then do the liposuction through. I mean, come on. I saw some Indian doctors doing a demonstration on fatty lipoma removal, and they did the little biopsy little thing, and then they were picking it out piece by piece with little tweezers, and I was like, so stupid. You squeeze it out like a zip, and then you get all of it. I got all of it out of this. There's nothing left in here. Well, actually, there is a little bit. There's a tiny little bit of a flesh, like a thing. It's just minor. This leg, it feels like I got everything out, although it feels a little bit hard on the bottom, so maybe I didn't. I don't know, but I got pretty much everything out of his. Let's zoom in on the scars. This is the scar. You can barely see the scar, and out of this popped that. That's the one that came out of my arm. Now, the lipomas themselves are rather interesting to look at. Let's zoom in on this. They were pink when I got them out, and you could see the veins, and you still can see the veins. This little hairy thing, that little hair, what looks like hair, that's a vein with a lot of veins coming out. This, as a matter of fact, these are held together by a vein. Big veins, and then they spread out into tiny little veins. And if you're to look at this in light, you're going to see lots of little veins in there, just like how they were when they were there. So it's a little ecosystem you've got there. So when you squeeze them out, basically you have to cut them out. You can't pull them out. You have to slice them because they're connected to the bottom layer. But slicing them doesn't hurt. There's no nerves there. You only have the nerves on your skin. It did hurt cutting this one a little bit, but it was a kind of pain that was like totally manageable. It was like an Indian burn type pain. And I was drunk by then. That probably had something to do with it. Like I didn't even care. Even if there was pain, I didn't even really care. Here, let's do some more of the frequently asked questions. So how long did you have them? Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting how, I don't know when they started. All I know is that all of a sudden they were there and they're really big. It was like at least 5 years, yeah, or longer, 10 years probably, but 5 years when I had noticed them. Why did you decide to cut them out for yourself rather than go to surgical clinic? When they said $400 to $600, I said, aha, I'm doing it myself, because it might even be more, and it's totally unnecessary. You know, let me go on a little diatribe here about what would I do differently? Well, yeah, we forgot to put the latex gloves on. If we had remembered, we would have done it. I would have washed my fingers. I didn't do that. If I'd have remembered, I would have done that. When I shaved the hair around it, I would have shaved a bigger space. I shaved what I thought was a really big space, but I didn't consider the Band-Aids. You want to shave around really big so that the Band-Aids don't get on any hair. You want to shave Band-Aid area. Yeah, I didn't have enough bandages. I had like 2 butterfly bandages when I did it, and I didn't have any of the big Band-Aids. So I would have put the butterflies on at first, but it wasn't really that necessary at the end of the day, really. So could you describe your past month recovery? Yes, because it's 1 month. It's 1 month and 4 days after. So let's right now do the zoom in on my leg. There's the big one on my leg, which the really big one. It was about that big around came out of. That's more than an inch. I didn't use stitches. I just kind of slapped a Band-Aid on there. To keep it from bleeding, I put this stuff called liquid bandage on it, which you get at Walgreens, and it's kind of like glue. You paint it on and then it fuses there, and it was kind of like my substitute for stitches to hold it there and also to keep it from bleeding. So what I did really was I put Neosporin on there, and then on top of the Neosporin I put the liquid bandage. So the liquid bandage encased the Neosporin on top of the bandage, the wound. So the wound had the nutrients of the Neosporin, but it was hermetically sealed. And it worked out well, and after a few days it just naturally falls right off. And I did that, and then eventually after a couple of days I didn't bother to paint that stuff on anymore. I just put the Neosporin on the Band-Aid. And this healed open, with like gaped open with flesh below, because at the time I didn't have any like of those little suture Band-Aids, so it just healed like that. So it heals fine. And I don't even know if it hasn't been much of a big of an impact on the scar either. This scar has 4 stitches at the emergency room, and this scar is bigger than this scar. So yeah, zoom in on that. So let's zoom in on the one on my leg. The one on my leg was really interesting because it was a really big hole that we made and a big cyst that came out, but it healed up almost instantaneously, and I think it's because it was the place where I was sitting down. And okay, one thing I would have done differently, there's still lipoma there. It's right there, right next to this incision. So what I would have done differently is make sure myself that I squeezed everything out. That was the only one that I didn't squeeze myself because I couldn't see it, and I just trusted the person that I was with to get it all out. So yeah, if I were to do it again, I would make sure myself that I got everything out, because I could have easily squeezed that out. Just squeeze it from a different angle, 90-degree angle, and would have popped right out. But it's not that big of a deal. If they come back, I'm not worried about it. I'll just cut them out again. I actually had fun cutting them out. It was an exciting experience for me, so it's not daunting for me at all. Let's answer some more questions. Let's see. Describe, show the materials. All I used was this. Here's my X-Acto knife. I couldn't imagine a better tool than this. This is probably the same thing as a scalpel. An X-Acto knife is a scalpel used to cut paper, and a scalpel is an X-Acto knife used to cut flesh. It's the same thing. So, what would you have done differently? Yeah, I talked about that. Any surprises to the removal recovery? One thing I was surprised is how much flesh they were connected by. Because from the YouTube videos, it looked like they just popped out and they were connected by a little like vein or something. But no, they were connected by a lot of flesh, which we had to cut through. But it didn't hurt. The flesh wasn't connected to any nerves, so I didn't even feel it. I only felt the vibration. Surprised that yeah. 200,000. I got 2,000 views from the one that I squeezed out. It's pretty interesting stuff. Okay, I got some comments. People had bad dreams about it and they were grossed out. Sorry about that, but I think it's a lot more gross to have them in your body than it is to have them out. I was reading some of the thing Andrew Weil was talking about him, and he was saying that, yeah, sometimes people don't get them out because they don't want the scars. That's the most ridiculous thing ever. You want a big, huge thing here just because you don't want to have a tiny little scar you can barely see. And I guess he said some people go to plastic surgery to make the scar go away. If anybody's considering doing that, I think you're going to do a lot more use for humanity if you just give me that money. Forget about it. I'll invest in my timeline project and my kayak trip. Don't be a little seriously. So let's see here. So basically, yeah, some people commented on my video and they said that it's unhygienic, not sanitary. I think people become very, that word where you think you're sick all the time. People take that way too far these days. I bought this, I opened it up, I didn't touch it. It was totally sterile when I bought it, and I didn't dip it in anything. Well, then we dipped it in rubbing alcohol. And then we sliced it, we squeezed it out. I mean, think about all the times you fall down, you get a boo-boo in your whole life, and you bleed. You know, you're coming in contact with the ground. It's a lot dirtier than your sterile house. The reason people in hospitals are so anal about how they sterilize everything is because there's hundreds and hundreds of people walking through a hospital every day, and it's you know, you just too many germs, and you just want to take care of that. If you're just in your house with a couple of friends who you hang out with all the time, and you slice and you squeeze and you put a Band-Aid on it, that's less exposure to the inside of your body than, like, you know, nicking your hand and bleeding on a like a mirror or anything outside. You know, those things you cut on are dirtier than, yeah. So anyways, the whole idea of not doing it is ridiculous. Do it. It's fun. You squeeze it out. And then you get to have these for the rest of your life. You know, you get to show them to your grandchildren, and you can get to collect them throughout your life. Pop them more out. I did eat them and chew on them. The reason that I did that was to get the texture. You can get texture.
You did not eat.
I chewed it. The reason that I chewed it was because I wanted to get the texture. I didn't want to, you know, there's no taste, there's no smell. It had the texture of fat. If you ever ate a big cow steak, and then you get into the fat, but it's a cold steak and the fat has frozen, and then you're eating the fat, and you can get all the little, like, corpuscles. You're popping through the corpuscles of the fat, and it's just disgusting. It was just like that. It's a little corpuscle within corpuscle, and it's I mean, eating one of my lipomas would be the same thing as eating the fat on a steak. It's the same exact thing. Okay, anyways, that's the video.